At the beginning of this interesting story, we can see the landscape of Yunchuan City, Huaming. This town didn't prosper. Everyone lived as best they could, some surviving, some luxuriating. But our hero's story was special. He decided to hang himself as an escape from reality. As he slowly died gasping for breath, he began to remember the revelations of the past. In another battle, the soldiers were mercilessly slaughtering men, intending to finish off each and every. Of course, the people tried to resist, but they were powerless against such a strong army. The company commander ordered the soldiers to make sure that no one was left, otherwise eliminate. This was not a battle of soldiers. These fighters were just inhumanely killing civilians, children, old people. In that locality, the whole ground was covered with mountains of corpses, and in the midst of them all stood a flag which symbolized victory. But in killing all these people, even the soldiers realized they were doing something terrible. But orders are orders. And so our protagonist approaches the survivor, a mother holding her baby. This child was very thin, because there was not enough food for anyone at that time. We had to survive. Seeing this picture, this soldier stood there crying, realizing what he had to do to them. He regains consciousness and realizes he doesn't have to die. He just doesn't deserve to die normally. But the rope was choking him. His carotid artery was constricted, and his oxygen had long since run out. Struggling to get out, he started swaying sideways and twitching all of his limbs. And it all started to work out because of his athletic body, which he'd made when he was a soldier. Instead of continuing to sway, he decided to put his feet on the ceiling and push off, and the iron to which the rope was attached ripped out of the ceiling along with the concrete it was screwed into. When he fell to the floor, he was finally able to breathe, so he started coughing and drooling. He lay under the light from his one window, and relief came to him when the mode of breathing was restored. He also had some syringes on the windowsill, and some pills next to him. It was no use. No matter how many times he tried to die, it wouldn't work, and he had to take the rope off his neck, for it was already useless, and would not kill him. Breaking news broke in the city. In the morning, strange creatures were found wandering around the epicenters of major fires in the city of 20. According to the latest information, the city is not functioning. The population is in panic. The police are doing everything in their power to find out the cause of what happened. The government assures that all residents will soon be able to shelter in a shelter. They also promise that they will put all their forces to protect civilians and try to avoid tragic situations. In the malls and all the other stores panicked. People didn't know what to do. And at the time our hero was in one of these stores getting water. But suddenly all the people started screaming for help and running away, knocking each other down. He noticed it, and he wanted to know what was going on, why everyone was making such a fuss, and he didn't know anything. Instead of sounds now, he saw people running past the row of groceries where he had been, and they were being chased by some monsters who were attacking people with unusual weapons. They were killing these people, but one of them was able to dodge and run a little farther, and then he kept calling for help. He ran past our hero, who stood waiting for something, wondering what he should do. They were terrifying, unknown creatures that killed people, cut off their body parts and ate them. He couldn't figure out what those things were. Were they glitches from the drugs he'd taken yesterday? These fearsome creatures headed in his direction, screaming, snarling, and incredibly thirsty for blood. But as he was far from being a common weakling, this sort of opponent could not harm him. The creature's body flew in the air, but his kind caught it, though with difficulty. And on an instinctive level, they knew who had the advantage in strength. This fight was clearly not equal. They stood incredibly embittered, definitely with the intent to attack and avenge their fellow man. And our hero remembered that yesterday he didn't use. Instead he tried to hang himself. But then what the hell are those things? These monsters began to attack from two sides, in the hope of defeating an adversary who surpassed them in strength, by means of a number of. But our hero was not afraid of death, and was also confident in his abilities. So he threw a bottle at the head of one of them, and right after that hit both of the creatures that were behind him, so that they both literally flew away. However, they continued to attack, and the pain and diminishing numbers of their team could not stop them. Our hero couldn't understand what they were trying to do, so he wanted to find out from them. but his attempts were fruitless. He started doing a move called a grapple, trying to immobilize the creature, whereupon he threw one monster at the other. Even at this moment, he wondered if he was not asleep. Now he decided to hurl them both aside at once, for he had the strength to do so. And he did. All the critters flew in a bunch, hitting the floor, and if a couple minutes ago they were intimidating people and killing them, this time they were out of luck. But he wasn't going to stop there, so he put his foot on one of them, and then he took a knife, and saying he'd been thinking of a way to kill himself for so long, he started swinging it, and before he struck, he added that now he didn't want to go down in a shithole like this. His hand came resolutely toward them at great speed, and there were sounds of crunching and clattering in that store of. He rose up as defeated. Behind his back lay 4 dead critters that had killed a bunch of people already. The whole store was trashed. It was like the apocalypse had just begun. In some room, another man was attacked by a bunch of these monsters, which he fought off with a bat. He fought them off as best he could, but still his strength wasn't enough to hold off 5 monsters all the time. What these monsters are, where they came from, what's going on, that's all that was on his mind. I missed one practice, and now I don't know what to do. I have to think. I remembered talking to someone on the street, and one asked where Xian had gone again, and they told him that Coach Xian was not feeling well, so he left early. But the first man approved the second man to not talk nonsense, and they have to bring back the coach. And then this kid said he didn't want to do it, and climbed over the fence, and added that Uncle Ben needs a good rest. Everyone's been practicing so hard, so I'll see you tomorrow. And then he went to grab a bite to eat before the internet cafe. Everything was going according to plan, and he couldn't have expected the apocalypse. How things got this way, when the world had changed so much. That's what he was thinking as he took the blows. And yet, receiving a large number of blows, he fell to the ground, which was very bad for him. Not only did he fall to the floor, and now he's out of position, but he dropped the bat. Of course, the monsters could not miss such a chance to overpower him, for they had been trying for a long time to bring him down. But then someone suddenly throws a frying pan at one of them, which was totally unexpected. With that throw, he hit one, but it went to second, and it was a double play. This man started running towards them, and they saw him and realized they had to prepare to defend themselves. It was our very hero who used a screwdriver to kill them one by one, without any trouble. After killing those who were standing, he ran to the one he hit with the frying pan to kill. They didn't pose any threat to him either, and he got over it pretty quickly. He saved that boy and told him that if he wanted to live, he had to follow him, but on the one condition that he obey his orders without question and do not interfere. Of course he agreed, because he had no other choice, because he wouldn't have survived on his own. While they were talking, there was a loud scream in this room, which meant someone needed help. Our hero immediately ran to help, though the boy tried to stop him, but couldn't. He didn't understand how our hero could leave without it, so he decided to pick up a bat, because it's better than bare hands. He managed to catch up with him, and he asked why they didn't wait for him, because he wouldn't get in the way. He did not answer, for he stiffened at the sight of this terrifying monster, which was full of muscular. The sight of the man trying to defend himself against this monster made our hero realize he had to act. It turns out the man was fighting back with a regular tennis racket and telling the monster to get out. The woman he was protecting was trembling with fear, as was the child she held in her arms. The boy didn't understand what this thing was. If he was used to the others, this was new to him. But our hero didn't think twice and grabbed the bat the kid had in his hands. The racket the man was swinging expectedly broke, and the monster swung at him. He tried to save him in time by dashing at the monster, with the expectation of defeating it, though the monster was strong. The monster himself noticed it and wanted to do something about it, but he didn't have enough time, and our hero hit him right in the face with that bat as hard as he could. But would it break such a monster? The first blow was followed by a second, for he could not be brought to the ground with one blow. It felt like he was pounding a real mountain, and it was scary, and it made him less confident. When he tried to strike again, the monster stopped taking hits and grabbed this bat. He just clutched that bat with one hand. It was like a toy to him. No danger. Then he immediately swung his other arm, and it's likely that a blow from such a monster could be fatal. But our hero once again demonstrated his incredible abilities, and with a somersault he dodged. And his new weapon was the base of a tennis racket, which was pretty sharp. Of course, he took advantage of that, and started stabbing him in various places and dodging attacks, and also attempted a controlling blow to the head to end this fight. But it turns out he didn't. He was aiming for the monster's vulnerable eye. Thanks to this attack, the monster's visibility became much worse. So our hero took up the bat. He decided to say the heroic phrase "die in hell" to look cool for the last time. But this monster also prepared to attack as it realized that the fight was not over yet. So he tipped his head back sharply, also bending his body over, and began to growl loudly. And our hero, and the bad boy the hero was holding, couldn't figure out what was going on. This boy was confused, not knowing what the hell was going on, why his body wasn't moving and shaking. But our hero was not going to give up, even though he realized that things were very bad, and his chances of success were getting slimmer. And despite the gouged out eye, this monster swung his huge, strong arm again. He struck a blow, and even for our hero, it was hard to hold it back. So he coughed up the blow came on the bat, but it could not hold such a blow for long, and it was already bent. And when the bat failed, it hit our hero, sending him flying into the grocery shelves. In this battle, the monster emerged victorious, defeating his enemy without much difficulty. He turned his attention to the same kid, who couldn't move for fear and was trembling, so turned in his direction and pulled the handle of the racket out of his eye, not showing that he felt any pain at all. It was very unsettling for the kid, and he knew he had to stay and practice. But the monster kept coming closer and closer, and the man who swung that racket sat there in despair, trembling. All he wanted was for someone to save his baby. Nothing else mattered. That kid at the same time, trying to move to do something. He tried to move as hard as he could, realizing there was no one to save them, and he had to act. The kid still managed to get into some sort of pose, and started shouting as hard as he could to add to his confidence. But that man and his wife and child were desperate and couldn't believe they were going to live. And the kid couldn't figure it out. He felt like every cell was infused with energy. It resembled an internal conflagration, and he ventured to raise that bat, though the enemy inspired fear of. For a second, he even thought that maybe in this state he could defeat such a monster. However, unexpectedly, our hero was unharmed, and attacked the monster from behind, beginning to strangle it with a lanyard. He was holding back that monster. It was really amazing, and the kid was glad his boss was alive. Of course, the monster tried to get out with all his might, but he couldn't, and our hero was surprised that he could still resist, given how hard he was pushing. So he quickly made the decision to finish with him, turned his back to him, and started pressing forward, resting his legs against his back. It was clear that the monster could not be defeated with a single lash, so our hero asked the guy if he was out, or if he had the thing in his hands for beauty, and this rookie knew he had to help and save them all. No time to get snotty. He ran straight toward it, though his bat was half broken, shrunken, but could still do something about it. The guy hit as hard as he could, still needed his baseball skills in a battle with monsters. Spilled blue blood, which meant only one thing, the victory of these two heroes. For the people who took refuge in this building, it was a shelter where they could live. But fear did not leave any of them. There were both loners who just ate and slept. They had nothing to lose, and families who grouped together and supported each other. And to all these people came our hero, and the kid who had just defeated that monster. All the people started looking at them because they were interested. These 7 hours were comparable to a decade. The first half of his life had been full of small and great troubles, but it was nothing compared to the last minute of it. Our hero's name is Yi Rong, and the kid was curious about his background. Such an unusual person. Despite his closeness, it's hard to get along with him. He likes coffee. The kid only knows his name, but I'm sure he's not a simple man. Right now, there are only 100 people left alive. The dead are bypassing the living for now. If it wasn't for Yi Rong, there's no telling how many more people would have died. Probably even he would have died. He was evacuating the helpless and killing the creatures. There was no confusion in his gaze, only confidence. Panic gripped everyone, but he easily mopped up department after department, as if he were used to such a life. The situation seemed absurd. Yi Rong asked the kid to take off his gloves, and they both had some markings on their hands. They all became special people awakened. Not much is known about it yet, but only 4 to 5% of people become awakened. In their situation, they need to transmit information quickly, so they'll give this thing an uncomplicated name. Supposedly the power they got had something to do with it. The kid didn't think he'd get it so easily. With that kind of power, you could easily make it to the big leagues. And what was even more surprising was that with the phone, one could see the characterization of the awakened and monsters. Yi Rong's skills were far superior to the kid's. Every day he hangs out at an internet cafe, and now he's in the game? Yi Rong called him, named Fan Xian, and asked to move all those creatures to the meat department of the department store, which made Fan Xian very surprised. He did not know why Yi Rong had done it, but then he noticed that he was covered with blood, and he had a general idea of what it was for. This human-like animal could no longer be called human, and Yi Rong took out his cutting tools. He shared with everyone the information he received, which made many people panic, fearful of the unknown. Despite all this panic, the people believed the man standing in front of them, for he had saved them all from death. If it wasn't for him, most people would really die at the hands of monsters. In this situation, he is a true hero. Yi Rong had just taught a lesson to the 3 bastards who wanted to take advantage of the general excitement, and because of that, the people trusted him even more. In fact, even if he didn't use his ability, he could easily subdue the 3 of them. And now, it's 22:33, and he's gonna tell their situation at the moment. What's really going on right now? A girl came up to him and said she had a curious mark. Did he want to tell them about it? And Fan Xian suddenly remembered this girl sharply. She had once tried to confront 3 men with NLJ before his eyes. Yi Rong started to say that in order to survive, you have to think only about yourself. But he will tell them everything about these threats because he sees no point in hiding this information. The girl wanted to know what the crystals were, so Fan Xian began to explain that he had given them the name. Yi Rong said that it would help with communication. A crystal is a kind of stone that can be found in the body of a monster, and as Yi Rong said, each telephone will show the characteristic and special skills of the owner, and they can also see the monster stats. The phone shows that they need to get a crystal to enhance their own skills. Yi Rong said they can't stay here, but she argued with him saying they can hold out for a couple of days, and they'll be rescued. However, Yi Rong explained that this was a temporary resting place. It was not suitable for a long stay, and there was no need to think about rescue. The outside was much worse than theirs. The girl asked how could he know what was outside if they were in the underground of a shopping mall. It's been 6 hours, but no one, including the rescue team, has gotten in here, which means they have no way to get in here, and communications are down. Need to leave this place and get to the nearest subway station, which the girl was very surprised about. The monsters appear suddenly. Their past locations have been discovered. If they were able to come in through the entrance, it confirms the already known problem. They should leave immediately, to which the girl replied that everyone is very tired. Can't he see that there are many elderly and wounded people here? Yi Rong notices something bad, so he orders people to quickly move away from the entrance. The entrance literally threw up, and people started falling, and shrapnel from the door flew right at them. Yi Rong realized that this was bad, very bad, because a normal monster, even the one he was fighting, would not be able to break down this door. It was indeed a monster of monsters, the epitome of a true monster that looked like an unbeatable monster. He knew from the look of this monster that he was different, and that's too bad. This monster immediately started killing all the people around him. Yi Rong realized that he couldn't delay, so he started to use his abilities, and the monster was surprised by it, because the next second he was literally slammed into the wall, damaging it with his body. Yeah, he was really strong, so strong that he could kill 100 people, even 1,000 without any trouble. But Yi Rong was not a weakling either, and he had already defeated many creatures. even though none of them were as strong as this one. But this monster is just in time for Yi Rong to try out his new abilities, which he's never been able to try out on anyone before. This girl, Fan Xian, and the rest of the people saw the way Yi Rong was fighting, and were surprised at such a strength, like two fucking Tyrannosaurus rexes. They reappear. The girl admits it's not safe to stay here. It's not safe now, and she won't argue anymore. The beast was not going to give up, and continued to try its best to escape Yi Rong's unusual grip. Even though Yi Rong is not easy, and people think he can easily break his neck since he can bend iron, but he won't last long. He himself also realized this, so he ordered Fan Xian to get everyone out of here immediately, or else it would be the end of them all. Of course, he didn't want to leave his first friend, his boss, in this apocalypse, but seeing this monster, anyone would realize he had to run. The monster began to break free from Yi Rong's grip, as his strength was already running out, and he could no longer hold on. His strength was over, and now the monster was going to attack, so Yi Rong had to get ready to fight back. Fan Xian still didn't throw it, and hit this monster with a weight barbell right in the face, but would it work? After the punch, he thought he hit the bullseye, and that punch had an effect on this monster. They have a chance to win. But as it turns out, the reality is different. Yi Rong started yelling at Fan Xian to be careful. His barbell didn't do any damage. It broke against this monster, causing Xian to completely misunderstand it. The monster immediately began to attack him. Xian tried to block with his hand, but the impact of such a monster was no weaker than a truck at full speed. So he literally flew away from that punch, even though he blocked it. Luckily, it hit the shelves and not the concrete wall. People were in a panic after seeing the strength of this monster. What happened to Fan Xian was very painful and horrible. Yi Rong realized that he had miscalculated, and quickly got tired. Now, because of him, all the people are in danger. Something must be done urgently. The monster was headed straight for him, and he prepared to perform some sort of hold that might help remedy the situation. And then he notices something unusual that not only surprises, but also frightens him. Yi Rong, a soldier with vast experience. This even caused him to recoil, and he began to use his ability again as he prepared himself for what was coming. Then, using that power, he started pulling something from above to most likely drop it on the monster. The monster tried to grab Yi Rong with his huge hands, but his excellent reflexes saved him, and dust rose up. When he jumped back, something broke down below, causing a cloud of dust to rise. But Yi Rong managed to grab onto a pipe from above. This monster literally broke several walls with his body. He was stronger than concrete, even iron, and a tremendous amount of strength. Right after that, Yi Rong realized what had happened, and that it was time to go down and continue to put his plan into action. He rushed to the side and grabbed a canister. The contents of this canister could be set on fire very easily, for it contained real gasoline. So Yi Rong immediately threw this canister into the holes in the walls, straight towards the monster, and took out a lighter, and threw it after the canister. The main thing was that the lighter didn't go out, and the whole plan worked, because there was no spare. There was an explosion right underneath this monster. It obviously had to suffer at least that much of an attack. All the people were frightened by this explosion, and wondered if the monster was alive, and also, would it cause a fire that would kill them? After dealing with, or at least apprehending the monster, Yi Rong headed towards Fan Xian, who was lying unconscious in that woman's arms. He was still conscious. The girl asked if he was okay, and Yi Rong asked if he could move, to which he replied that he was in pain. Fan Xian gathered himself and said that everything was fine, and the girl was afraid that the broken rib might have hit her lung, but it seems not. Yi Rong realized that he had been hurt badly, but he recovered quickly. Apparently, it was no coincidence that he had risen easily after being hit back then. The girl asked again if he was okay, and how the wound had healed so quickly. Xian said that it still hurt, but it was better, and Yi Rong realized that he had to hurry. So he said that they would come back to it later, and asked if he could walk. It's dangerous here, and Fan Xian should take them in and leave. And we also had to find out if this girl, whose name is Lin Qingyu, can drive. And as it turns out, Yes, it was great. They'll go out, find a car, and wait there. He'll stay and deal with the monster, and they'll leave. Of course, some blown-up canister couldn't stop a monster like this from killing for long. Yirong became more and more worried. He couldn't understand why they were frozen, then ordered them to quickly leave. All the people started to get scared too, because they realized that even if the explosion didn't help, how could they handle it? This monster looked incredibly terrifying, as if he was evil incarnate, and Yirong noticed that he hadn't been hit at all, but it was a good thing that all the people had already started running away. Of course, none of them wanted to leave Yirong alone, especially not Fan Xian, but there was no other choice. Who would lead and organize the people if not them? Panic set in again, and all the people were jostling, but you could understand them. Everyone was just trying to survive, to protect their lives, and possibly the lives of their families. Fan Xian tried to organize it all, but in a critical situation, no one could handle a bunch of people alone, although he tried to. As they were running away, two creatures appeared right in front of them, which Yirong had killed without any equals problems at first. However, Fan Xian is also not simple. During the back-to-back battles with Yirong, he learned how to fight, and defeated the move at once. The whole bunch of people started heading towards the exit they found thanks to that woman and Fan Xian. Meanwhile, Yirong was doing battle with that monster, preventing it from going after them and harming them. That was his main goal. And despite the fear or risk of death, he continued to fight for complete strangers. He felt responsible for them, at least because he had killed the same complete strangers before. It didn't fit. Yirong had already broken a lot of sharp weapons against this monster's body, and they were all useless, as if he was hitting a stone. But he wasn't going to give up, and kept fighting him with new weapons he found, and won the maximum amount of time. Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu stood there with an incomprehensible expression on their faces, for they had seen something terrible and frightening. And this was their city. It scared all the people who ran out of the mall dungeon, because it was completely destroyed. Most of the cars were abandoned, or simply destroyed by the monsters, and there was smoke coming from many of the houses that accompanied the fire. All the people stopped panicking, and they all started to get desperate. Some were looking nowhere. Some were crying, thinking it was the end. Fa Xian noticed that Ling Qingyu was looking for something, so he asked her what she was looking for, but she told him to stay out of it and take care of the others. She found what she was looking for. It was a bus that would hold all these people, for transportation to safety. And as they were running towards it, something suddenly cracked behind them. It was the same monster that had fallen out of the window for some reason. And Yirong was in flight trying to finish him off with another cleaver. Yes, he was the one who knocked him out of the window. It was a battle of equals. Even though they were falling from such a height, Yirong was not afraid of it, because he knew he would survive. And in any case, his main goal was not to save his own life, but to save the others. They fell right on top of the car, right next to all the people, and crushed that car literally to a pulp, like it was made of cardboard or paper. Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu noticed it, and realized that it was bad since the monster was close to people. And also Yirong had fallen from such a height. It was dangerous to stay near that monster, so Yirong had to roll a little away from it, but he was still injured. The monster himself got up from the car as if nothing had happened, and Yirong was barely conscious, because it was too early to rest. When that monster fully rose up, standing in the smoke, he looked even more pissed off than before, and was ready to kill everyone right now. Yirong noticed this and started telling them that they were idiots. They couldn't just stand there. They had to run away. Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu realized that they were in a stupor when they saw this, and thanks to Yirong, they were able to regain their senses and get on with their tasks. And Yirong grabbed a road sign and ripped it out of the ground with a concrete base. How much strength does it take to do that? Then confidently told this monster to show what he's made of. He'll show you what he's really made of. And immediately after saying that, Yirong rushed at him with a road sign in his hands as a weapon against the monster. Would it even work? Fan Xian at this time asked Ling Qingyu if she knew how to drive a bus, to which she replied that she didn't. but it was practically the same as a normal car. And that wasn't the problem right now. They got lucky though, and she found the key in that car, which meant they could get out of here and save all the people who were still alive. Yi Rong was beating the monster with the metal pipe from the road sign, and surprisingly, it was quite effective. But at one moment, when Yi Rong was striking again, the monster was able to grab that pipe and throw Yi Rong away by it. The people watching it all thought it was amazing, and couldn't realize how strong this monster was that it could do such things so easily. Yi Rong was amused and frightened at the same time, the fact that this monster was still alive. And now, without that pipe, the advantage was not on his side. But he still did not give up and continued to fight. The monster threw this pipe at Yi Rong like a spear, but he dodged it. And at that moment something happened. Yi Rong and the beast heard the same thing, and Yi Rong was happy about it, very happy about it. Fan Xian and Ling Qing were driving the bus at full speed, which was heading straight towards Yi Rong and that monster. Yi Rong, realizing their plan, immediately dodged the bus by jumping aside, but the monster did not have time to do so. But the monster was not going to retreat. On the contrary, he took the blow and tried to stop the bus with all his strength. Fan Xian and Ling Qing didn't give up, and continued to press the gas pedal to the floor, and drove as fast as possible. Fan Xian noticed that the monster didn't care, and was holding the bus back, so he asked Lin Qingyu to increase the gas, but she told him that she had already pushed the pedal down. While the monster was trying to hold back the bus, Yi Rong realized that he had to help, so he began to use his strength. He knows a bus strike won't kill a monster like this, but while he's busy, Yi Rong can twist its neck with his ability. The monster was no longer holding back the bus, he just picked it up. It was an incredible sight, but he really did it. Picked up a bus that was going at full speed. Fan Xian was very frightened by this, and didn't know what they should do, so he put his arm around Ling Qingyu, who asked her to let go, because she had no room to breathe. Yi Rong told the monster to tell the devil to say hello to him, and began to twist his neck. It did start to crunch and twist out of place. All the people stood bewildered for the umpteenth time, and in their eyes they could see hope of success, of victory, that they would live. When they saw a bus run right into some building, and that monster too, but he got his neck snapped, they wanted to believe that he was finished. After that, Yi Rong briefly used his power to finish the job to make sure that he was victorious, but then let go nonetheless, realizing that they had finally made it, causing him to exhale in relief. He actually exhaled a sigh of relief, tried to kill himself, but by avoiding imminent death, he became happier. Yi Rong could not accept his present self, his desires, so he kept blaming himself, claiming that he was good for nothing. His inner world was in chaos, and he decided that he couldn't go on like this. He had to change everything. It was hard for everyone around him, but Yi Rong was especially hard for him. Fan Xian protected Ling Qingyu with his body, because when they crashed into this store, put themselves in great danger. He asked if she was okay, to which she said he almost killed her twice. So she asked him to get up, or he'd crush her. He was glad she was okay. Ling Qingyu was curious about the monster. What was the outcome of their battle? To which Fan Xian cheerfully replied that she had slain that thing with her own hands. When they came out, she got dizzy, and he told her to be careful. But he was cold again, and said it was all right, so let him get away from her. Fan Xian saw Yi Rong, who stood on the dead body of the monster while holding an axe, so he started to ask him not to be angry. Didn't they kill that monster? But he did not listen to them, and simply began to chop him with his axe, at which they were surprised and horrified, for they could not have expected such a thing. So they decided to ask what he was doing, why he was cutting up the body of a dead monster. Is that necessary? Yi Rong spoke up, explaining that in the past few days, his head had been filled with rosy dreams that would never come true. But that thing slapped Lin Qingyu and brought her back to reality. She wanted to scream with all her might, but she didn't. No, she must have just been afraid. His motive soon became clear to her. Because of this unusual atmosphere, she did not dare to utter a single word, though there were plenty of words on her mind. Yi Rong ate that crystal, and she continued to reflect that she had spent 3 years in internship, doing various jobs, and had seen a lot of corpses in her life. Yirong gave off the smell of death, and she could definitely say one creepy thing that was true. He is an evil demon standing on the mountain of the dead and drowning in the seas of blood. Yirong looks like a man, but inside, he is no longer a man. He has become a monster standing on the mountain of corpses. We are told about the current characteristics of our heroes. Yirong, basic properties, abilities 28, physical strength 23, special strength F level enhancement, supernatural strength F level, thought power A level, physical defense F level, and so on. And Ling Qingyu has basic properties, ability 11, physical strength 14, special power supernatural strength C level, magic resistance level, physical defense level, skills are absent. Yirong is broken through a few levels ahead, and Lin Qingyu's special powers are also good. The physical strength is higher than Fan Xian's. Yirong collects basic necessities, mainly food, drink, medicine, and the rest of the things you need to survive in such conditions. He also took gloves and hats, dark, non-reflective clothing, and the food he took had a long shelf life and could be easily transported. Others followed his example and helped, collecting much the same things that Yirong had also collected. After the gathering, they went together with everyone to the town hall. Luckily, there were no creatures here, and they could pass through together safely, though cautiously. Everyone snorted in relief, but Yirong suggested to continue walking. This time, he only allowed the awakened ones to go with him, but not everyone else. He didn't force anyone, but most people wanted to go with him, because they realized they couldn't survive without them. What would they do when they left? Ordinary people who weren't taken were cursing them all the time. However, several people thanked Yirong. They hoped he would stay with them to survive the disaster together, but he still left silently. Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu went along with him, not even thinking of staying with those people to protect them from the monsters they might encounter. Lin Qingyu doesn't think he's ruthless. There's enough food, medicine, and weapons in the city hall. They've reinforced the defense line with cars and fire doors, and found a passage to the subway. Although it is not clear what is happening outside, they are taking a great risk, but they cannot stay here waiting for help. In this situation, taking all the people with them is tantamount to a death search. At least she tried to convince herself of that, to make her feel a little better about the fact that they had abandoned these people, and now only luck would help them out. Now they're going to the military district. There should be a police station on the way. They'll find weapons there. That was Yirong's plan for the moment, though it's unclear if the weapons will work against the monsters in any way. He will go in front, Fan Xian will go behind, and Ling Qingyu will go between them. And the most important thing is to remember to look around. Otherwise, they may not notice the creature, and they will be attacked suddenly. The slightest mistake can lead them to their death, so they must be vigilant before they reach their goal. When they went into the police station, all the cops inside were dead. Apparently their batons didn't work against the monsters. One of them died about 6 or 7 hours ago, caused by a bullet that went through and through. Yirong ordered Fan Xian to remove the corpse and block the doors with windows. He unhesitatingly agreed. Ling Qingyu was thinking about what was wrong. It felt like there was something important in the bag, and Fan Xian, who was carrying the corpse, was thinking about how heavy the corpse was. When she opened that bag, she saw something that really shocked her. Yirong quickly walked over to her and grabbed her shoulder, causing Fan Xian to not realize what was happening at all. She apologized for reacting so violently, saying she didn't do it on purpose, and asked to see something. Fan Xian said that it was just a worn cup, but she also thought so at first, but she had a strange feeling about it. They all looked at the picture Lin Qingyu was showing, and she handed it to Yirong's hands. It was a level 7 God's healing cup. Value roaster. Properties creates healing holy water with supernatural power. Fan Xian realized that it looked like this was a damn useful thing, and they were truly in luck. Yirong simply remained silent, as this behavior was just childish, to which he apologized by saying he was too excited. The three of them ended up standing around it, and Ling Qingyu tried to use the bowl somehow. It began to glow yellow, and from the look on Lin Qingyu's face, one could tell that she was really getting tired. Something filled the bowl, to which Fan Shixian was very much surprised. This was indeed unusual. After which Lin Qingyu laughed, and it was really hard for her. Fan Shixian was scared for her, so he asked her if she was alright. Even Yi Rong was worried, and asked if it was normal. It seemed like too much physical exertion, and she said it was like coming back from the dead. The wound began to heal thanks to the liquid in this bowl, and the surprise was unparalleled. This was great. It seems like Lin Qingyu is now their healer, because this liquid really does heal wounds with great speed. Fan Shixian realized that he was once again too emotional, and Yi Rong would scold him. However, he only said that the risks were great, but the benefits were not small either. Apparently after the military district, the next stop is the museum. She told him to shut up, to which he said he'd take it as a compliment. SWM-60, 5 bullets inside, muzzle point only at the target. Try to aim at the head and chest. Yes, they finally got a firearm. Fan Xuanwu thought it was just plain lame, and Ling Qingyu didn't know if she would be able to use this weapon. Yi Rong started to say that he shouldn't overexert himself right now, so it's better. Stop. He abruptly interrupted and stopped them, standing there in a sweat. Lin Qingyu and Fan Shixian also noticed it. It was starting to make both of them feel uneasy. From this they both fell to the floor, curled up and holding their hands over their hearts. They all felt very ill. But why the? Yi Rong realized that things were very bad, so he rushed out of this room as fast as he could to get to the bottom of this matter. Looking up he noticed something, though it was quite dark outside, and the lights in the city did not work. But he could easily spot this thing flying in the sky. By the looks of it, it was an incredibly strong monster, many times stronger than even the one they killed at the mall. It resembled a dragon that flew in the sky, and its strength was simply enormous. Would they be able to defeat it in battle? He had such strength, although he just flew past, and how to fight such a thing, that was all Yi Rong thought about. Even he was afraid of such a thing. Running back to his companions, he saw that they continued to lie on the floor and squirm in pain with fearful. Fa Shixian said that he was fine. There was no need to worry about him, but it was necessary to check on Lin Qingyu, which Yi Rong did. She was much worse than Fan Shixian, so Yi Rong had to give her artificial respiration, otherwise she would have died, and then started CPR to get the heart going so it could keep pumping blood. Her heart was still beating, but she couldn't breathe, and Yi Rong noticed the bowl. He let them drink the liquid that was in the bowl, because he had no other choice. He was counting on past experience and luck. After that they both started coughing. Apparently some kind of process has really started. Good or bad is unknown yet. Fan Shixian couldn't understand what had happened. He suddenly began to pant, and Ling Qingyu couldn't think of anything at all. But remembering the creature and the other dangers, Yi Rong approved that they would take a break for a while, then move on, and change plans for the time being. Fan Shixian and Ling Qingyu were sleeping, or just resting, and Yi Rong was on guard as usual, for danger could be waiting for them anywhere. The clock that was in this room was eating Yi Rong's brain. He looked like a deranged killer who had lost the meaning of life, who had lost himself. In the morning they were already beating up the next monsters, which fortunately were not too strong, and our group easily coped with them. For Fan Shixian, something was a breakthrough. Not only did he become stronger, but he also learned how to use that strength, which was really useful. After these thoughts, he told Yi Rong that there was no one left, but Yi Rong still decided to look around him. After making sure that no one else was left, he began to chop those monsters, and Ling Qingyu said that they could attract monsters. Why not use the power of thought? He explained that no one had mastered the powers perfectly yet. If they were used incorrectly, they could get hurt. And besides, if there was a stronger creature here, this crowd wouldn't dare to be here. Once they eat all the crystals, they should leave immediately. While Ling Qingyu and Fan Shixian thought that these crystals tasted bad. They've been wandering around for half an hour, but it was as if Yi Rong was specifically looking for monsters to collect more crystals so that he could become stronger. He knew to hunt the weaker creatures. If they slowly build up their strength, they could be left behind one day. Somewhere in the city, a big battle had begun, and yes, it was people, living people who were fighting monsters. Someone besides Jirong and his team. They were men in uniform, which meant the army hadn't fallen yet. They were shooting the creatures with machine guns and making some progress. However, the monsters were not going to give up, so they kept coming and coming. But with such weapons, it was difficult for them to defeat the soldiers, even in numbers. The favor of bullets pierced the skin of such creatures, though they were not the strongest of their kind. And if they faced someone stronger, they would all fall down. It was bound to happen sooner or later, even though they held the line of defense. But a monster stronger than all of them came, and it was very dangerous. The solids realized that he was stronger than the others. It was the fat man, but one of them realized that you can't let your guard down. So he told them not to be idiots and to shoot. All these bullets started hitting this monster. Would that stop it? No one was sure. So the commander ordered a grenade. They got ready to throw. And then, they actually started throwing grenades that exploded next to this monster. One of the grenades did reach its target. It struck him in the shoulder, thus igniting him. This option did damage to him. All this was useless, for the wounds of this monster were constantly healing, and even a grenade was of no avail. So what were they to do? The soldiers couldn't understand what was happening. Why he was coming closer and closer to them. They were gripped by fear and panic, but who could save them? They were soldiers themselves. This monster started grabbing soldiers by the head, just throwing them everywhere, breaking their barricade. They were like toy soldiers to him. Due to the fact that he was able to break through and hold off the soldiers, all the other monsters also began to attack, not losing the opportunity and helping their fellow monster. It continued to scatter all the soldiers, killing them indiscriminately. This monster was quite strong, and who knows if Yirong's team would have been able to handle it. The soldiers were trying to hold their defenses, so they gave orders to move to the next line of defense to at least continue to resist the monster somehow. He starts trying to attack their captain, but he is the most experienced and strongest soldier among them, who is in command, and without him they will be finished. The captain dodged the blow of this monster and began to shoot at it, although he realized that it was absolutely useless. On the other side, a weaker monster began to attack him. The captain lost his guard, but still managed to repel the attack. But while he was dealing with that little monster, the monster had already gotten very close to the captain. His hand was literally at his head already. Suddenly this monster stopped. Yes, it was Yirong who came to this battlefield, and with his power he stopped the monster. All the soldiers were confused and couldn't understand what kind of person this was, and how he was doing it. All the monsters behind him were dead, which the soldiers were even more surprised at. How could he kill them all in an instant? The captain asked Yirong who he even was, but Yirong replied in his style for the captain to leave, unless he wanted to die, of course. At the same time, Fan Xian began to attack the monster, and the captain reacted and dodged it with a somersault. He took blow after blow, and as we can see, it worked on him, unlike bullets and grenades. But how long would it last? The captain was shocked. It's just impossible. All the firepower of a machine gun failed, and some kid with a bat beats him up. Yirong ordered Fan Xian to quickly get out of there, and of course, he obeyed him unconditionally and grabbed the captain to run away with him. She asked what was he even doing? Why did they have to run? Everything was fine, and he was handling the monster, wasn't it? The monster's face was literally twisted from those bat blows, even though he didn't receive much real damage, and Yirong was putting his plan into action. Like with that monster at the mall, he used a can of gasoline, throwing it at the monster, and right behind it a lighter. He used his power to amplify the explosion, and held the monster back, because they just didn't have time for it. The monster was right in the center of the explosion, and it seems to be very effective against him. Unlike the explosion that was caused by the grenade, he could heal, and if he is constantly burning, he will not have time to regenerate. The point was that clay hardens when it meets fire, which is why fire is particularly effective against this monster. There was something wrong with Yirong's arm. He was in pain, but he had been able to tolerate pain since a long time ago. The fire had stopped, but the monster was still already blasted and set on fire. Now it had become burnt clay, which was a good sign for Yi Rong's team. Yi Rong immediately walked over to that monster, his hand blackened even more. Apparently this was his new ability. Hitting this monster, it literally started falling apart, and a bunch of cement chunks fell off. So it's a victory. Fan Xian realized that this was a new skill, and it was so cool. You can break cement with your bare hands. How cool is that? Of course, everyone was very surprised by it. The captain couldn't tell if Yi Rong was a human being, because humans just can't do that. They can't make a different hand color or use some kind of telekinesis. The captain began to tell me that all these monsters appeared suddenly yesterday afternoon. A whole horde attacked the place where they were, and untrained officers were killed immediately for that reason. They literally had no chance of winning against such monsters. Later communication was cut off. The enemy defeated the entire command regiment, which was very bad for the remaining soldiers. Fear of the enemy eventually made the soldiers lose morale. He managed to gather the remnants of the troops and hold the line of defense. But as she watched the fighters die, she began little by little to feel weak, and to fear that soon she too would die. Everyone looked at Yi Rong, unable to understand how such people could exist. A bunch of soldiers could not cope with monsters, and he and his two companions, without firearms, could do it. It was at that moment that she met Yi Rong, when all her soldiers were dying, and she herself was one step away from death. And it turns out that he saved her. Yi Rong asked her, calling her a junior lieutenant, if she was in charge here, and as expected the answer was positive. He told them to quickly equip themselves with the necessary weapons, for they must get rid of the rest of them. They had a total of 33 survivors, 10 able-bodied, needed to prepare for a new battle that would soon begin, after which the roles had to be assigned. Ling Qingyu treating the wounded, the rest, including Fan Xian, protecting the main force, and his comrades unhesitatingly agreed. Other creatures on Yi Rong, the lieutenant will cover him. However, she said not to rush the horses. After all, they don't even know who he is. These monsters are more organized than before, and he assumes there is a commander inside. What does that mean? Asked the lieutenant. Yi Rong began to explain that if not destroyed at the root, they can attack again. They can't waste time. They should start gathering. As soon as the lieutenant tried to object, Yi Rong said that they could introduce themselves later. No need to waste time. They all intended to go up against an army of these monsters, with a commander in the form of Yi Rong, who from this point on was responsible for the operation and its success. Yi Rong and the lieutenant must go as well. No one can delay. It made the lieutenant even angrier that she can't even object to it. And so the battle began. They shot every monster that came their way. Not a second of extra slowing down. Even though the opponents were far outnumbered, it was never a reason to retreat. At least not for Yi Rong. Yi Rong is superhuman. Even before all this chaos, the apocalypse started, before he made his abilities and skills higher thanks to the crystals, he was strong even in the past. His strength was uncharacteristically human. His reflexes, his combat and defense skills, everything was top-notch. He used to be a very capable soldier too. This lieutenant had also noticed his skills before now. But now she also saw that his marksmanship was top-notch, and wondered who he was anyway. Yi Rong noticed that there was going to be an explosion that would hit them both, so he grabbed the lieutenant and threw him to the floor. This explosion broke the wall, or rather it was designed to break it. While the lieutenant was concussed, Yi Rong was already on his way up, realizing what awaited them. It was an entirely new monster, unknown to them, which resembled some sort of shaman or sorcerer with a bunch of underlings. Yi Rong was surprised to see the monster, as he had expected to see a monster like the one in the mall. But the lieutenant thought it was a bomb. This monster was looking right at them, with incredible anger, cruelty, and bloodlust. You could tell from it that it was definitely an unusual monster. But that's what Yi Rong was looking for. And the lieutenant had a sense of oppression and pressure, even though it's just a filthy thing. But it thinks it can't handle firearms. And he wasn't going to slow down. So he said to help, aim at the ringleader and shoot. The lieutenant asked him to wait. However, it was impossible to slow down. This shaman has sent his army straight at them, because if they can't handle them, there's no point in him fighting them. However, this didn't scare Yurong in the slightest, and he only laughed as he began to use his power on the knife he held in his hands. He decided not to fight with this knife, but threw it, and thanks to the force he put into it, the knife flew much faster than usual. He threw that knife right at that monster, and even though the knife broke, the monster shaman's staff was also broken, so it was worth it. And immediately after that, Yurong stealthily ran up to the monster to strike another blow, maybe even a controlling blow, due to the surprise. According to Yurong, the situation had changed. All the enemies in the barracks had been destroyed, and they had regained the lost front, which was pretty good news. Under Yurong's command, everything is going very fast. The soldiers were also mopping up all the fronts with great speed, killing monsters one after another. And the doctor they had was Ling Qingyu. However, the lieutenant did not understand what kind of mysterious power she was treating the wounded. Did such medicine even exist? They also organized the weapons storehouse and replaced the equipment. All the soldiers were surprised at how easily Fan Shishin carried 2 crates on one shoulder. Yurong seemed really strange to the lieutenant, and really suspicious. Every second there was more and more reason to ask him who he was. When she tried to approach, Yurong addressed her as Junior Lieutenant Quan Huiyun, and asserted that she could ask anything. There would be no further opportunity to do so. He said she wanted to thank him, but how did he know her name? Had they met somewhere before? The former commander of the Capital Brigade Military District, General Quan Rong Hao, is your grandfather? He asked, then began to say that 5 years ago, he met Major General Li Yunlong in the military district. Then she was there too. When he said that, apparently the lieutenant's mind began to flash back to what he was talking about. Some old man says they'll go first, and our current lieutenant at the time is about to become a junior lieutenant. They'll have a chance to meet later. Then, they saluted each other, and never thought they'd ever meet, especially under these circumstances. She wanted to ask the commander who they were, because at the very least they looked very strange for soldiers. However, he told her not to ask who they were, and to try not to cross paths with them again, which made her even more confused. The commander knew that this group had no units or ranks. They were like hungry wolves on the battlefield who would follow absolutely any order. The lieutenant remembered all this, and realized that he was indeed a soldier, and they already knew each other. But could he be trusted under these circumstances? Also a member of the special unit, which is taboo for commanders in military circles, Yurong approved that she must have heard something from the brigadier already. He took off his hood and walked right up to her, which made the lieutenant nervous, not understanding what he was after. But as it turned out, he asked her about some kind of deal, and also asked her to gather all the soldiers. Yurong was obviously up to something. When they gathered all the soldiers, as it turned out, Yurong wanted to create some kind of special unit. This was the deal he was talking about earlier. They could either join or stay here and guard the military camp. And the lieutenant realized that she had little choice. She had to think carefully. Then Yurong began to say that this disaster had affected the whole country, and apparently other places had been affected as much as this one. Now there's no communication, and it's hard for the military to control the situation. The soldiers couldn't believe it, and thought it just couldn't be. The lieutenant might or might not believe Yurong. It was her choice. But one thing was obvious: how hard it was for her to choose between those options. But they were afraid to admit it, to tell the truth, what was on their minds. The lieutenant realized that at this time, he was quickly adapting to the new world, and was enthusiastically killing monsters even more terrifying than the ones they had seen recently. After which she decided to ask what they would get if they joined them. What would be the benefit of doing so? Yurong explained that if they joined them, they would get all the information he knew and an extra chance of survival. They were human beings too, and with their present capabilities and knowledge of the world, they can't help anyone, so it was foolish to refuse. All the soldiers sat silently in the car that Yurong was driving. Now, they actually had a better chance of survival than before. That's how they started getting information from Yurong's group. They still need more data. This problem is only causing headaches. Fan Xian as well as Lin Qingyu explained everything they knew to the soldiers. And Fan said that although it was hard to believe for now, this was the case. If this were a normal time, the lieutenant would have sent him to an asylum. But the experience of the last few days gives no reason to doubt the veracity of their information. For some unknown reason, after the sudden appearance of monsters in the human camps, awakened people began to appear. Now, in addition to Yi Rong and his friends, a lieutenant and 2 other military men became such. Only the pattern distinguishes them from normal humans. By killing monsters and absorbing crystals, you can increase your stats. Monsters have different levels and abilities. By eating crystals of a certain monster, you can increase certain characteristics. You can learn more about it through the phone. Goblin crystal gives a small increase in the value of basic properties. Orc crystal gives a significant increase in the values of basic properties, but it also becomes a bit more difficult to defeat it. Black orc crystal, once absorbed, increases abilities and physical strength, increases skill enhancement, and increases physical defense skill. The crystal of clay monster after absorption increases the basic abilities use skill physical defense, regeneration. Using the reinforcement, you can increase speed. The goblin shaman crystal, when absorbed, increases the supernatural power skill, the magic resistance skill, and the ancestral vision skill. It can be used to acquire a more powerful item in advance. It is possible to. Yi Rong has swallowed dozens of magic crystals, including supreme monster stones. His abilities are 69. Physical strength is 45. Special strength enhancement E level. Supernatural strength is E+. Skills are Dragon Scales level 6, Regeneration level 6, Ancestral Vision level 6. His men, Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu, also absorbed a lot of crystals. They convinced the lieutenant and other awakened ones to do the same. Everyone was silent. No one complained. It turned out that the remains of monsters can be used. They can help a lot. For example, this pill Lin Qingyu made with the horn of a goblin shaman, the flesh of a clay monster, and the healing bowl of a god. Goblin shaman's horn has a mysterious power. After absorption, it is possible to use part of the goblin shaman's power. Clay monster flesh can regenerate quickly. When absorbed, you result slightly increases fear resistance, recovery ability, and so on. A professionally trained team can handle 100 monsters, but sometimes there are higher monsters. Their roars and pressure can affect even the awakened. It is not something that can be overcome by mental or physical strength. You need special abilities to withstand fear and recover quickly. Their firepower will increase greatly if the soldiers and weak awakened ones can resist fear. Yi Rong turned to the junior lieutenant, saying that if they encounter higher monsters, have the soldiers take these pills. Later, Fan Xian and Ling Qingyu should be issued uniforms, armored vest, and taught how to shoot. Military uniforms are clothes specially designed for the battlefield. If they don't wear them, they can easily become a target of these things. People who have never held a gun before will only bring trouble to the squad, so they should use abilities. Guns only in emergency situations. They changed clothes, and Fan Xian said that he didn't think he would wear the uniform. He had always dreamed of wearing it at a time like this. He then asked if Yi Rong wanted Fancher to come up with a name for the squad. He thought it was important, to which Yi Rong replied that since he had taken over the position, he should decide for himself. He got excited and said he'd actually already thought of everything, the bright path of morality lurking in the shadows. And then some man interrupts him and suggests the option of MO. Thanks for watching. If you want part 2, like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends.